John Keim, who covers the Commanders for ESPN.com. Hey, John.
What up, guys? How are you?
Was it a fun weekend for you?
Well, it certainly beats some of the other weekends we've spent out there watching rookies. So, I mean, anytime there's a new staff and then a high pick like Jayden Daniels, there's a different level of excitement surrounding the franchise. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're going to have to go out there, it's better. I'd rather go out there and watch a young quarterback than.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's there's something that
there's something to look forward to when you're driving over to the facility.
It's a lot more than like, oh, how's the right tackle going to look?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even though I know people are screaming, they need that. Okay, I get it. But if you're going out there to watch, quarterback is a fun thing to watch.
How many total players were out there, you think, roughly?
30, maybe 30 more than that, maybe maybe a little bit 35, something like that.
Do you get to see him throw anything more than just kind of like
10-yard outs?
Yeah, like little easy little throws. Like, is there any intensity to it?
It's an intensity of the practice, you mean?
Yeah, kind of like just what they're doing.
They're an hour long, and so for about 45 minutes, it's warm ups, it's going through. Some footwork stuff, etc. And then the last 15 on Friday were 7-on-7 drills or 7-on-7 work.
Okay.
Same thing on Saturday. Now, Saturday we didn't get to see the 7-on-7. Friday we did. And so when you're in there, and I think one of the things, and Dan Quinn talked about this Saturday, but it's true, both he and Sam Hartman were pretty accurate on those in that period. And, you take it for what it is, but the point they have is like there weren't a lot of balls hitting the ground. And I think what you saw from him is, just what I noticed, and because again, you're 7-on-7, but you see the footwork, right? And you see one of the things that jumped out to me watching him throughout this process, and then also talking to people, is just the footwork in the pocket and just the eyes, the feet marrying the eyes. And when you're going through your progressions, if that's not happening, it's going to lead to inaccuracy, and you would see that happening. So you saw. Like a couple of times, like looking to the left, coming back to the right, and your feet are going with you. On some of just against air, no defense, the deep balls were, pretty accurate. So, and that's what you would expect. I think the bigger thing that jumped out to me too, though, is just watching him at times motion to guys like to get their alignment in the right spot. To me, that's a little thing that suggests maybe how deep in the playbook he's been when you're able to do that. And that jumped out to me a little bit more because that spoke to some of the extra work or the work that he's put in, whatever, before this. And I think the other stuff with the arm and all that we're going to see later. It's not like he doesn't have a rocket arm. I think his strength is as much he has a good arm, but it's the ball placement is going to be the key. They were trying to highlight his quick release. Some guys over the weekend. Is that a real thing? That's been a real thing. Like that, yes. I mean, that was a real thing in college. And so one of the things that again jumped out compared to some of the other quarterbacks was that he had a quicker release and not a long wind-up or anything like that. And that's when people talk about arm talent, it's not arm strength. There's a difference, and part of the arm talent is the release.
Yeah, that make up for a lot, I would think.
Correct. It absolutely does. And so when you would see this in college, going through the progressions, and it's it's a tighter release, and so you're able to deliver it just quicker, right? But it's also like when you're getting to your progressions, when you see it, are you going, right? And not seeing it pause, then go. And I think that's one of the things he does. And again, that speaks to arm talent as well.
Now, one of the things you wrote about on ESPN.com as we talked to John Keim is kind of the intangibles around him. The guys seem to love him, and Coach Quinn just talked about how much he loves football. Get into what some of these guys said about Jayden Daniels.
Well, Ben Sinnott, the tight end, and then Luke McCaffrey, we talked to those two afterwards. And Sinnott worked out with him a little bit in the offseason out in California, both he and Hartman, but he was talking about how much he's a guy that you want to watch film with, you want to go to work with, and just the personality that he has. And McCaffrey kind of echoed that and just called him a stud. But the personality I think is one that they gravitate to. And, you know, I heard, like, one of the things that won this team over, there are a lot of things that won them over. I mean, the film won them over, but when you dig into them, one of the things from off the field that they really liked that translates on the field was that aspect. And, for example, him getting up and having these 5 a.m. workouts, and not just him doing it, but getting his receivers to come along. Like that, like I had one person tell me that, you know, I would tell him to bleep off. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're, you know, just joking saying that, but like to get some of these guys to go do that takes something, and you're not going to do it if you don't want to follow this guy. So like that is part of what he is, and he's not a boisterous, loud, you know, grab you by the face mask kind of guy. It's more just, I think he's a little bit more reserved, I think, at first, but he's always smiling. He's all, you know, there's, you know, he can laugh, right? I mean, not everybody can laugh, but you know what I mean? He's not super serious about it, but he is a football guy. And I had someone who's known him for a long time called him and his dad football nerds. Mm-hmm. So just, you know, so like there's that aspect to him that I think is really pleasing to them.
What about some of the guys he was throwing to? I know McCaffrey's such an intriguing guy just because of the last name and the story there, and then also Sinnott, right? The tight end. Did those guys show anything to you?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of hard. Yes, I mean they all show something, right? And like McCaffrey, for a guy who's just switched positions, looks pretty fluid at that spot. I don't know what that'll mean, but I know like he does, like he little things, comes back for the ball well, right? Feel like he's kind of quick in his breaks. Has to learn probably some subtleties on some of the route running, but that's kind of expected when you've only played that spot for a couple of years. But he catches the ball well, and so, you know, has a shot because of that. And that's why he's a third-round pick. But so you saw that, right? And then with Sinnott, it's hard. It's a little bit harder to see sometimes because a lot of his game is, you know, it's not just running routes. I mean, he's going to be a blocker in the backfield too, right? And I think that was a big part of his game at Kansas State. But you can see that he's more fluid running his routes than I think some other young tight ends we've seen here in the past, and that you saw for sure.
So, John, it wasn't all positive coming out of the rookie minicamp. We get the news that Johnny Newton's going to undergo surgery to repair an injury to his left foot. He's already undergone surgery on the right foot, has a similar injury now to the left. Right. Quinn wouldn't put any sort of timetable on it. Do we think he'll be ready for training camp for the start of the season, or is it too early to tell?
I think it's early to know for sure. Like, they weren't going to put it on, but just trying to like go back and look at the previous time, his previous injury, and the previous one was one that it happened during the season, and he kept playing, and he doesn't even really remember when it happened, and he was still a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. But then he had the surgery in January and was unable to work. And I don't know exactly when in January he had it, but he was unable to work out at the Combine, which was late February. He did, and then Illinois had their pro day on March 9th. He could not work out then, but he did work out in mid-April at a pro day. So if you kind of follow that timetable, then that's what, you know, it's February, March. Okay, almost maybe 2.5, 3 months or so. So that would kind of put him into, into July, into August. So I don't, you know, if you follow that, and I don't know how strict that is, and I don't know. Again, it depends on, was it late January had it or was it early January? I don't know. But the point is, I don't know when he's going to be back, and I don't think it's going to be something that would keep him out much, you know, deep into training camp. I wouldn't think that, but I don't know that for sure. So, you know, but I will say, and Dan Quinn said it too, like, it's better to have it happen now and get it taken care of. And right. I don't know this. I know it's a similar issue, but the severity of it, was it the same? I don't know those questions. Those would obviously provide more of the timetable. for it as well. But, if it happens in camp, or if you miss a lot of camp, now you're really putting yourself behind. Having it happen now, it's just far better if you get it fixed. But as long as you're able to make most of training camp, because we've seen before with young guys when they miss training camp, it's hard.
What did you notice about the coaching staff?
Energetic.
Yeah. Was Kingsbury? Yeah. What was Kingsbury's interaction with some of the players, including quarterbacks?
I mean, he's very involved and active, and they do this little drill. I'm sure you saw some of this or heard about it. Where after they do the stretching, they kind of do. It's almost like a hype drill, and they gather in a circle and. Just like in any practice, you come over and after stretching, you gather in a circle. It's like, hey, let's have a good day, blah, blah. Well, this time now it's really more of a hype drill. And so you're doing like this bag work, going back and forth, and it's like 20 to 30 seconds of just pure energy. And Kingsbury's kind of in the middle of that too. So for a guy it's funny because even in his press conferences, he's more of a very, very, very reserved guy, but it's not like he was like the enemy out there where he's just like really boisterous and you can't help but notice him, but he was, pretty active and energetic. And I think that's what, it's not like everybody's out there screaming and all that, but I do think there's a different energy that comes with this group. And some of that too, I think there's like 13 former players on this coaching staff. It's a lot. And I think guys like that tend to, they understand and they bring energy. And I think that's, whether it's, it's going to be as good as bad as number 5 plays.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, if hindsight's 20/20, but how did you feel when they did this last year under Coach Rivera with Sam Howell at quarterback?
Well, with the rookie minute, Sam wouldn't have been there.
That's true.
I think part of the difference is just when you're a number 2 pick and we don't know where he's going to go. And I know with Howell we didn't really quite know, but I think there were definitely a lot more questions with the staff and with everything and everything surrounding the franchise. Very, very different. So, I think just with change comes the new energy. But you hear about that even like in the building and stuff. I just, it seems like it was a welcome change.
When's the first time we see the veterans
we'll see
with the rookies? Tuesday. Okay.
We're going to be out there at the OTA practice for the veterans on Tuesday.
Okay.
And then what happens after that? So then there'll be a break?
No, we have we'll be out there the next couple weeks for OTAs. Then there's I think 1 week where it's off, and then we get the mini camp will be in June. So I think there's 3 days for the OTAs that we're out there. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mini camp, the mandatory mini camp. So we got a few more practices to go watch them.
It'll be interesting to see all the vets out there because they've got so many new guys.
Right. And that's like I said, there's a natural energy that comes with that. But I also think that this staff has that naturally as well, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But yes, the veterans too. I'm curious to see, it's good. As you know, it's hard to tell fully where guys are at. I always go back to the Larry Johnson when he was here. Anybody remembers when he was here, and people would watch him in training camps, like, oh my God, he looks great. Oh my God, look at him run. And you get to the season, and it's like his yards per carry were worse than my college GPA. So, you know what I mean? It was you kind of got false information. So, but you always keep that in the back of your mind. But I am curious to see some of the impact of a guy like a Bobby Wagner on others around him, including Jamin Davis. So, things like that, what are the interactions? Obviously Zach Ertz, Austin Eckler, they know how to go about their work and get things done, and will really know, and the other thing, I'm curious with those guys, what are the little subtle things like in Eckler or in Ertz, the way they run their routes that maybe a guy like Sinnott can pick up on from Ertz or something like that. Those kind of things I think are interesting to me.
Yeah. And any idea, where there's a clear, obvious need where they're going to bring in more guys? Everyone always says the offensive line, but is that basically it? Where do you see them pulling in a few more guys?
I think if you had to look at two spots, it'd be O-line and then corner, because I think there are just questions at both. They have bodies at both, but do you have your answers at both? We don't know that yet. And I think with tackle, I think part of it too is, obviously they drafted Brandon Coleman to, and they hope they think he can play tackle. So depending on how he progresses, then it matters like what you do from there. But I mean, every team in this one right now, especially, they know who's out there. They know what they need. And, so it's just a matter of when do you feel like you have to go get it? And what is this a better solution than what you have on your roster? But, with Lucas, Lucas and Coleman, going for left tackle, is that a good solution right now? I don't know, because we don't know what Coleman can do. And I think, the problem with the spring stuff is you don't really know what a lineman can do until you get the pads on. So it's really hard to tell. Like, you can go through everything, but you need to get into a physical situation to really get a good feel for that. So it's going to be into training camp before you really know. But I don't think they'll ever stop looking for help at that spot until you know. And then corner's the other one too, because we don't know how Forbes going to look, how St. Juste's going to look in this defense. And they assigned a few guys to play that spot. The only one that you have a good feel on is Sanders still as a slot corner. I think like St. Juste, I think there's definitely some benefits for them with the coaching change, I think. So I'll be curious to see the impact on that.
Speaking of the corners, is Forbes, I'm just looking at a depth chart now, and who knows? I mean, it's only May, but they have Michael Davis, who they picked up from the Chargers, ahead of Forbes on the depth chart at right corner.
I don't look at depth charts in mid-May.
I know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. But I think you have to put it in the mix, because we don't know what Forbes is going to look like. And I would say, like, here's the thing: like, Davis has a history with this coaching staff, with the secondary coach. So, like, that matters. But, what that means for September, I don't know. But he is a guy that started, and you brought him in for a reason. He has the length and size that they like in this defense. So, I for sure am not penciling in Forbes as the starter yet. I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, there's new coaches, he's going to now excel. I think there's still a lot that he's going to have to clean up on his own to get to that point where they'll be comfortable. But one thing we know is if that kid gets there, the skill he has is being able to take the ball away. And if he shows that, I think they'll find a way to get him on the field. But yeah, Davis has experience in there, and he was up and down in the past. So
he is a bigger guy. He's bigger,
and they want that in this defense. Like all the corner, now Sanders still is not a big guy,
but
he's
tiny.
He's in the slot.
Yeah,
and he's in the slot, but he also, I would say, tends to. I think because he's physical, he plays bigger too. But I think with Davis on the outside corners, all the guys they looked at, they're the guys that they were looking at and they brought in for visits were bigger corners. So he fits that. So would it surprise me? No, not at all, because we don't know what we're going to see from Forbes at this point. St. Juste has the size too, obviously.
Yeah, the only thing, I know we got to run, but the only thing that I always kind of bugged me about the Forbes stuff was that they drafted this kid knowing he's a ball hawk, and then when he took chances on the ball, they benched him. But I don't think
it's that simple. I don't think they didn't get benched because he was taking chances on the ball. I mean, you know what I mean? So I don't think it's as that simple that he.
Well, those were the egregious mistakes that we saw.
Yeah, it's definitely more than that.
He probably made a lot of mistakes. Yeah.
I mean, it was more like, why are you getting out of position on this route? Like, and it goes back to technique, footwork, whatever. So it wasn't as simple as, oh, he's getting burned on this. That was never brought up to me at all. Like, oh, you got to bench him because he's taking too many chances. Like I never heard that. And I think, his technique has to be improved.
Well, hopefully Quinn and Witt can fix it.
And that's the thing. Like that's where I think it's going to be very interesting to watch just his progression, not just in the OTAs in the spring. One of the things I will say about Forbes too that I think he deserves credit for, during all his struggles, the kid never backed down from answering questions. And like that stuff to me matters. Like now he's got to go out and improve on his own, right? but he answered every question very. He never backed down, never snapped, never anything like that. And so I don't know. I'm always impressed with that. And so I thought he handled it with a great deal of maturity. But you still got to go out and improve. And I will say that to me is that's an area where I think they'll be improved with their coaching is in the secondary.
Right.
And how much difference will that make? And it's I can sit here and talk about techniques, but someone's got to also help him get there with it. And he's got to, you can tell him stuff. You can tell any player. The player then has to work on it to improve. Ultimately, the responsibility is going to be on the player. But I am curious to see what the impact of the coaching is on that player in particular.
John, we got to run.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
John Keim,
Thank you,
ESPN.com.